What is evidence? Evidence is not a statement of a theory, nor is it the result of a model. Evidence, as used in this context, uses data sets of quality generated from real-world measurements. It uses data designed for the analysis, and it uses best practices for the method of the analysis. Let's start where there is complete agreement. The greenhouse property of CO2 forces climate. No published evidence to the contrary of the above theory was found. This study added to the deep evidence pool that the greenhouse property of CO2 forces climate. Some of those studies are now shown. Now let's check the following theory. When all CO2 climate change properties are combined, CO2 forces climate. This will be fun. Try to guess how many science papers present evidence to the above theory. 1,000? 100? Make your guess. Every single study will now be shown. No, the screen is not stuck. There is almost one study. All other studies specifically focus on the greenhouse gas property of CO2. Let's look at this study to see if it presents evidence. The study was actually an exercise, not evidence. It was an exercise to see if a method called information flow could be used on climate data. And as such, it was excellent in breadth and did generate interesting clues. But it didn't reach the level of evidence because the study did not test a hypothesis. The hypothesis was, do changes in CO2 force changes in climate? The study did not test changes in CO2 or temperature. Causation can only be evidenced via changes. The study also didn't remove cycles from T when testing longer than a year. Precedence testing and information flow require reliable timestamps, should employ highly reliable real-time modern climate data sets, and test changes. Okay, so if there aren't any studies showing evidence that CO2 in total forces climate, are there any other studies that show that CO2 in total does not force climate? Want to guess again? Try to guess how many science papers present strong evidence of the above theory. 0? Every study will now be shown. All but one of the studies use real-time data sets with accurate timestamps. The exception used paleoclimate data with unaltered isotope time markers. And all of the studies analyzed the correct hypothesis. When will the world understand the difference between CO2.net and CO2.greenhouse? It will be years after scientists understand and accept the difference. In the meantime, C3 flora is suffocating, and Earth is at risk from international policy that will stop Earth from greening further. Is that what you want? Will scientists stand for a browner Earth and science driven by media rather than by evidence? How many peer-reviewed studies present evidence supporting the actual cause of climate change, the oceans, via the sun? The following is a small sampling of those studies. Among scientists, there is little disagreement here. Empirical evidence is overwhelming and supports the following. The oceans are warmed by the sun. The oceans lose heat to the atmosphere, meaning it warms the atmosphere. The atmosphere loses heat to space. The atmosphere loses very little heat to the oceans. The air is predominantly colder than the oceans. What the atmosphere does lose to the oceans has almost no effect. It takes 1,100 parts of air to impact 1 part of the ocean.